What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Valley coming at you with, as always, the certified fantabulous Grant Hughes, and super excited to be joined by, as we are now every year, Bleacher Report draft guru Jonathan Wasserman. Follow him on the social media machine at NBA Draft Was, WASS, spelled exactly as it sounds. Mr. Wasserman, thank you so much for making time for us. I know it's a busy time of year for you around these. There might be a draft or something coming up.
Yeah,
Rumor has it. How
I
the
heard
heck are you
about it.
doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm always joined for you guys. But yeah, I'm good. It's cool that we go straight from the finals and like 2 days later we're into draft mode.
I don't know if cool is the word I'd use for it. What word would you use, Grant?
I would say punishingly relentless. I would use two. But hey, also I don't know if you caught that, but Dan definitely just verbal contracted you into doing this every year. He said, as we will do every year. So sorry, but
In
I think
perpetuity
you're
too. That's
yeah, you're stuck
binding
forever.
now. He didn't
That's
reject
fine.
it, so it counts.
I'm good. I'm good for an hour.
So I wanted to start here. Or actually, Grant, you want to take this one? This was a good question.
This is helpful for us non-draft experts that follow the league, but just don't have anywhere near the sort of perspective on this that you do. Last year, the narrative was, and I think it turned out to be accurate, like there's not a superstar in this draft. It was just even leading up to it, 18 months prior to that draft. Oh, this class just isn't great. And just some people were even.
Who was the first pick again?
Yeah, right. Actually, I was like, was it Alex Sarr? Like, so what is from more of an inside, like really following this type of thing perspective? How does this class stack up, and take that any direction you want? Is there a superstar? Like probably, but where does this draft class sit relative to last year, relative to like the last 10 or dozen or however far back you want to go?
All right. So it's like always hard to measure draft classes. Like you could have like a couple stars at the top and then nobody, or then you could have like, 25 really good role players. Is that better than the class that has a couple stars at the top?
Mm-hmm.
I would just, if we were to separate it into like a good and bad, this is definitely a good. Like this is there's obviously potential stars at the top, way more than last year, of course. And I think Cooper is the real deal. Somebody that has been like in front of our faces since he was 15 years old. It's not like he just like blew up out of nowhere, or even like Wemby, where people didn't really get to see him, on like a big stage until, like the year before the draft. Like we've seen Cooper Flagg with USA basketball for so long, and every year he gets better, and every year the hype goes higher. So we're all good with him. And Dylan Harper's the same way. He's been a big name for so long, and he's never really let us down. He's always getting a little bit better. And then it gets a little bit tricky with the next handful of guys, but I still think that there's a lot of confidence in them. And then as you move down the board, like this is a good year to have a first round pick. I mean, I really don't see much of a difference between some of the guys in the 20s and some of the guys in the teens. And I'm saying that as a positive, right? Like I think that you can get a lottery caliber guy in the early 20s. So I feel like I've become like over my older years as I get gray in my beard, like more of a pessimist, but I'm feeling good this year. Like I think there's a lot of good players. And even with, I'm sure we're going to get into NIL and a lot of these guys going back, which naturally reduces the depth of this class or whatever. I still think this is, you can get like good players in the second round.
Well, let's go there since you mentioned the NIL stuff and guys going back. And I think in the long run, that might be better. It's better for agents, I'm sure, but also better for college basketball if you want people to be sort of married to their fandom of a program rather than all this turnover. Is it material? Some people have said that it's materially impacted, though, the depth of this class, and they think it's going to get even more impactful moving forward when you're looking at maybe end of first round, second round type guys. Do you agree with that?
I think every year it's going to change. Like this year, there happens to be a lot of really good freshmen. Next year, there might not be as many good freshmen, and guys might not go back to college because they have a much better chance of going first round. So this year, and by the way, the model is, I'm into the model. Like, I think it's pretty cool. I mean, next year, as a college basketball guy and somebody who wants other people to watch college basketball, and like I can't even get my best friends to watch 5 minutes of it, it's going to be much better next year. There's like some big names that came back, first round caliber guys will be back. I'm so into the transfer portal thing. Like I know like old heads are going to be like, there's no continuity and you never know who's on what team, but it's fun. It's like fantasy sports. It's like every year these guys are building new teams and new players are playing with different guys. But yeah, I mean, like this year, a lot of guys that that would be considered like first round caliber prospects went back because they're going to make more money. Some of these guys are making like $2 million, and they're like borderline first round picks. So there's no doubt that they'll make more money in college than they will in the NBA. So a lot of his decisions made sense, and it's got its pros and cons, but I'm into it. I think the pros outweigh the cons.
I liked it better when they only did it for the love of the game. Getting paid is just such a mistake. Should have done it for the love of the game.
This is an issue. I am one of those people that just like, with following the NBA, following college basketball has become like, I don't know where it falls on my list of non-NBA sports, but it's gotten harder and harder. But doesn't it stand to reason that if these borderline guys that are going back because I can make $2 million versus maybe I'm a second rounder, will there be a class at some point in the next handful of years where those guys do go back and they get better and they make money, which is great for them? And then it's like, oh my God, we have 6 juniors in the lottery, like, which is just unheard of, because those guys like, isn't that a possibility where you have more upperclassmen actually? And then maybe teams are like, great, this guy's ready. He can actually help us.
If
like,
that does happen,
that type of player.
If that does happen, then it's a really bad freshman class.
Right. Okay.
Like,
people are still going upside, right?
I mean, that's still the case, right? There's still a lot of freshmen in this first round, but I was looking at the numbers. It's really more about like the back end of the first round and the second round. Like a couple of years ago, there was like a 6-year stretch where only like maybe 4 to 6 seniors would be taken in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
Last year it was much more. I think this year it'll be like in the teens. So it changes things, but still, upside wins, youth wins, but you got to show enough of it during that 1 year. But this year this is a very strong freshman class. Next year, there's a couple of big guys at the top, and then it's unclear. Like to your point, next year, if the guys who are like the 4, 5, 6 freshmen on the board are not as advertised, it could be a weird thing where we see a lot of older guys go higher up the board.
Okay.
Grant, you had an archetypal question, right?
Yeah, I don't know if this is like a fair question to ask because it's kind of esoteric too. Like, but 7-8 years ago, you're looking at the types of players everybody wants, and it's, well, how do we keep up with the Warriors and the Rockets that play 6'6" centers and space the floor, and everybody's got to switch and all that stuff. And then you cut to last year, and maybe this is class specific, but you have Edie and Klingen going pretty high, and those guys are like, they can't. Those guys feel closer to Roy Hibbert, than like some of the guys that have been drafted high more recently. So trends change and the way the game is played changes. I'm wondering if maybe the best way to phrase it is like, all things being equal, what kind of skill set is like the tiebreaker now? And is it still just, we want wings that can do everything? Or is it like, is there a type of player you're seeing maybe just in this class specifically, or the last couple, that maybe is regarded more highly now as more of like the trendy player type that teams are coveting? Or is there just, it's always best player available?
It's definitely always best player available, but yeah, there are trends. I'm always under the belief, and I have a good question. Like, I have a question for you guys, and this is the same type of, it's the same idea. Like, if Shaq played in today's league, like, would Shaq dominate? Like, in my mind, like, if you give Shaq the ball, he's still going to dominate, even though he's technically doesn't have that like shoot dribble skill set teams want. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's like one of those theoretical questions that I just don't know.
I mean, I think like 7-8 years ago, I think that question would have been met with a lot of like, I don't know. The way the game's played now, it's pace and space, and if you're a non-stretch, non-switch big guy, you're just, again, Roy Hibbert's the comp. It's like that guy's dominating the league, and then 2 years later he's out. But
then
I think, go ahead.
No, on the other hand, it's like, the same thing with like, mid-range isn't cool anymore. It's threes and layups, but what if you're really, really good in the mid-range? And like, like nobody plays post game, but like think of Embiid and when he's actually healthy. Like, post, no one's going to feed you the ball in the post, and like everything slows down. But like, if you're dominant in the post, you could still be good in the post. So, I don't know if there's, yes, the like Klingen and Edie going lottery last year was kind of surprising. And I think it's become more accepted to take guys like that who don't have that classic modern skill set. And every year we're seeing like a 7-footer who is like the Mitchell Robinson. We're in New York, Dan, like the guy who just dunks and blocks shots, and he's not modern, but like those guys, that skill set translates. Like, almost feel like you can you know exactly what you're getting, and what you're getting carries over. And I think that holds weight. So, Derek Lively and Mark Williams, like those guys all went top
Steven
15 in the draft.
Adams.
Yeah,
Just
Steven
like-
Adams
Keeps getting paid. Right. I think there's something value about, if we're just talking about big guys, that particular skill set, and just the fact that like it's going to carry over.
Are we ready to dig in some specific prospects? And I don't know, Was, if you're aware, but there's someone named Cooper Flagg. I think is projected to go number 1.
It's in my contract. I don't have to talk about Cooper Flagg for another year. But yeah, let's talk about him.
Right, we'll
wanna
move
talk
on to
about
Egor
Bronny again?
Demin. Yeah. Can you grade Bronny's rookie year performance?
I'm surprised they didn't make me do a rookie report on him.
So I think this criticism feels like it's probably winnowed a little bit, but do you subscribe to the critique that maybe Flagg is not a best player on the best team type and is more of just a guy who doesn't have a major weakness, or is that just a misrepresentation of what he could do, especially after his empty gym shooting workout with the Mavericks, apparently?
Listen, I think he can be the best player on the best team as long as you have a good supporting cast, right? There's so many other variables. He doesn't have that. I think we get so caught up in like, can he be Jason Tatum? 5 seconds on the shot clock, give him the ball and go get a bucket. Like, can he do that? Traditionally, like that's not his strength. That doesn't mean he can't be the best player on the team because of how many other ways he impacts the game. But yeah, I think that question and that concern really comes down to everyone's like obsession over self-creation. And I've kind of like over the years devalued it a little bit. And it reminds me, I know there's obviously a lot of differences between the guys I'm going to mention, but like Giannis and Zion, I mean, healthy Zion is dominant and he's not a great self-creator. He'll still give you, a healthy Zion is still going to dominate a game without being a guy who is going to like work you on one-on-one and pull up, step back off the dribble. So I think he can be the best player on the best team of a good team, but you do have to have some maybe better creators around him. There's other things involved there, but man, he is like as complete as a prospect, both in terms of skill, physical tools, athleticism, his mind, intangibles and stuff. Like, I know it's like a cliche to say he doesn't have a weakness. Like he really doesn't have anything to worry about with him. And of course, the other side of it is like, how high is the ceiling then? But I love those guys who just get better every year. Like the big question, kind of Grant, what you said, like the big question coming into this year at Duke was, can he be the best player? Does he have that creation ability? Is he a good enough shooter to be a number 1 overall pick? Every single year he gets better at those things. And knowing who he is, where his background and stuff, and you're just betting on the same type of development I saw from 15 to 18. Like if he goes at the same rate, he is going to be a number 1 option by the time he just turned 18. And it's like the craziest thing to even think about. Like he's going to play 5 years in the NBA and be 22. So he could be a totally different guy in 5 years. And just, again, the ability to improve, that I guess that could be a skill too. And he aces that test, like the ability to improve.
I guess you kind of answered this too, but I think part of it is the injury with the team he's going to go to in Dallas with Kyrie injured. Where do you land on him as just a playmaker? Because I think probably because Dallas is the number 1 pick, I went back and watched a bunch of like Cooper Flagg passing, and he was a little bit more dynamic there than I was expecting. But do you view him as someone who can be the driver of an offense in that regard? And I guess the second part of that is, do you think it's worth is he someone who could be trial by fired in that, or do the Mavericks need to go get another playmaker while Kyrie's injured to like sort of insulate him and ensure his workload isn't too heavy?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, he's not your like lead playmaker. It's something he can do, but he's not like a point guard. It's a extra layer to his game that separates him from guys who are 6'10" and lock down defensively and fly above the rim and will play through you, on the way to the hoop. Like it's a extra layer that really is pretty cool because first of all, he's gotten so much better shooting in the mid range, which I love for a pick and roll ball handler. His brain is processing and the passing has always been there. And the passing to me is something that always translates. So yeah, you can use him in that spot, but he's not, I don't know if his handle is good enough where it's like, okay, give him 12 ball screens a game and let's just run everything through him. So yeah, you're going to need another like real ball handler and point guard. But when he's playing power forward and being guarded against 6'10" guys, that ability to create off the bounce and make reads and decisions with the ball is like very advantageous.
And you can't get away with guarding him with a wing or a small, right? Like that's just off the table because of how he uses his size and like.
Yeah, right. Maybe early on, maybe like when he's 18 and 19,
Mhm.
but yeah, when he fills out and gets even stronger, he like loves contact. He's so good at playing through it. And he's one of those guys like kind of like Zion, where it's like he doesn't need like these fancy ball handling moves. He does the right move to get to his spot, and then he's just so good at just like plowing through you and finishing with body control or tough layups. So yeah, I'm excited about that part of his game.
Yeah. You ready to jump to Dylan Harper, Dan? You got more on Flagg. We've already had Was talk too much about Flagg. It's like, what are we doing?
What else do we need to know about Cooper Flagg? Yeah.
Harper's really interesting to me. One, because I'm a long-standing Ron Harper fan, just one of my favorite deep cut like role player guys ever. But like, so two-parter, I guess. He can move. He can get to his spots. The jumper is a question. The numbers are what they are, and the form is like it feels flat and all this other stuff. So what are your thoughts on his potential as just specifically like just say a 3-point shooter? And maybe we can get into off the dribble 3-point shooting if you want to get more granular. And then assuming he goes to the Spurs, which feels like that's what's going to happen, but who knows? What's the interplay going to be like in your estimation between him and Steph Castle, who's coming off Rookie of the Year? The questions with him are about the jump shot too. Like which of the two would you expect to see developed more as like the on-ball guy versus the off-ball guy? Because if you both have shooting questions, like how does that? What's the likeliest way that shakes out?
Yeah, on paper, listen, it's a tough fit on paper. Usually, good players figure it out, and so if you're San Antonio, you just kind of you bet on that. And I'm always like take the best player available, and you figure it out later. If you have to make a trade later on, like you make a trade, but. One of the things with Harper, just based on this 1 year, he was very efficient off the ball, like good spot up shooter. He does well with those dribble handoffs. So I'm not as concerned about the fit between Fox and Harper. I guess the bigger concern is, does this stunt the development of Castle? Because he's going to suddenly like a big selling point to Castle coming out of UConn. And you guys probably watch way more Castle than I did this past year. So I know
the show or the player.
That's actually not a bad. Maybe I should go. That's a good throwback show to get involved in. My dad always liked Castle, but like he's not.
Show.
Yeah, it's such a dad show, but like not like a young dad show. That's like our dad show.
We all used to juice the ratings of it though before those TNT games when it'd be ending just as the TNT games would be starting.
It's so good. Yeah, but like no, he's never like he's gonna. You throw Harper in there, and suddenly Castle's just naturally going to be spending more time off the ball. And I don't know if that's one of his strengths. I've always thought one of the big selling points to Castle was like the positional size for a guy who can play point wing. That's what I remember seeing him in high school for the first time and being like, holy crap, this guy is like powerful, strong, and he's making these like cross-court passes. And that wasn't even his role at UConn, but you could see that was an interesting part of his game. So anyway, I think Harper can play off the ball. I'm not worried about that. You just worry about what this does to Castle, who was now obviously a key building block for that team, and somebody who I thought had upside as a creator, but also a lot more to learn and to get better at. And he's going to have less chances.
Ace Bailey, there's wild stuff coming out about him right now. I saw you post on Twitter, and I think that was like good perspective of teams understand that this isn't Ace Bailey, this teenager making all of these decisions on his own. But like, how much does this actually? We've now seen him like slide down a bunch of boards. So like, before even getting into like what you think he could be as a prospect or an NBA player, like how much is all this stuff trickling out actually impacting one, NBA teams' view of him, and then two, where he'll ultimately get selected?
So the people I've talked to are like, if Philly passes on him, Charlotte's not. And I don't even know if that's intel. That's just like people are like expecting him to go top 3 all year. And if he slides to Charlotte, who is kind of desperate, and everybody had this idea that Bailey, most people around the league always had him as, in that same tier with Dylan and VJ. let's just say what it is. This is a Jonathan Gavoni report, and he put it out there, and he changed the narrative. And I'm not questioning anything Gavoni does. I've always had respect for him, but he threw out this report out there and put him at 6, and it changed the whole narrative of the NBA draft conversation. I don't know if he knows anything of what Charlotte's thinking or what Utah's thinking from people from, and by the way, this is the problem with draft reporting, is you're always going off rival teams, right? Like if I hear from a team and they tell me something interesting, I can't say it out loud, right? Like I'll lose that connection. So you're always asking around the league to kind of get a consensus and feel, but they're not in the same building. So it's it's like a weird, it's not like great journalism, but people want to know what you're hearing. And what I'm hearing is that there's no way he's going to slide past Charlotte or Utah. But again, this is like an optics thing, right? It's just like, it's a bad look from him. It makes Ace Bailey look bad. And now they're talking about him on like mainstream shows like PTI. Like I think it was a Wilbon maybe the other day. I hope it was Wilbon. I don't want to put anyone bad. They said like, I would never want to be a part of this kid. Like I would never want somebody with that mindset on my team. Like again, he's 18. He's listening to Sharif Cooper's dad, who's never been an agent before. He just started it. He has no NBA players. He was a grassroots coach, and he from Georgia, has a connection with Ace Bailey. Like obviously there's a trust between them. They have a deeper relationship, but, and also I don't know what's going on inside of, I've reached out to Omar Cooper. Obviously did not respond, but like he obviously knows way more than we do. And so maybe he knows what he's doing, and maybe he wants him to fall to Brooklyn. So he is a star in a big New York market. Like, there's so many variables involved, but I don't think teams are like going to pass on him because he's like a diva canceling workouts. I mean, there's so much tape on Ace Bailey. It's not, again, forget the 30 games that he played this year. Ace Bailey has been such a high profile prospect for so long that, nobody's learning anything new from a workout. So forget the workout. And he actually has never had a bad reputation in terms of character. Like he's always been a good kid. Nobody's ever said a bad thing about him off the floor. So this is obviously all agent driven. And I don't think a team, if they really think Ace Bailey is the best player on the board, is going to be like, that Omar Cooper, he's a pain in the ass, or he think he's cocky. We're going to take somebody else. Like I just can't picture that happening.
I have a lot of Bailey's like even I think independent of this narrative stuff that's come up the last couple weeks, I guess. Bailey, to me, just watching some of the film, I was wondering if is he going to be someone that teams independent of the other stuff look at and say like some of these weaknesses are like real issues for an NBA player. If we could imagine that none of this other non-basketball stuff had arisen, do you think it would just be, he's going 3? And like, or is it your sense that there are teams that are looking at him and like, well, he takes and sometimes makes difficult contested shots, doesn't look on balance all the time. Like could you kind of take us through some of the real questions? Because like, I don't know, maybe I'm just a pessimist, but when I watch the film, it's like, it's really hard for me to unsee some of the stuff that would concern me about him as a player.
He's not top 5 on my board. So
okay.
Like I'm not pro Bailey in terms of like, the comparisons coming into the season were Tracy McGrady and Paul George, and even Brandon Miller was one I used as like a lighter one. So I'm not comparing him to like a Hall of Famer, but his I think after what we saw, like the weaknesses change his projected archetype. So now Michael Porter Jr. is more of the comp, or even more of like a wing version of Jabari Smith. He's not very efficient with the ball in his hands. He's not like his moves are not like super sharp, and they generally result in some type of difficult jump shot. I don't want to be all negative on him because again, he's still 18. He is going to be 6'9" in shoes, and he's an incredibly skilled shot maker. And he also was very efficient around the rim when he got there. And he shot very well on touch shots around the paint, which I love for a guy who's not an explosive athlete. Like he's going to need that. But what kills me, I'm just pulling up right now, and I'm big on this one number, and like historically, it's pretty overwhelming, the evidence. So he has an 8.3 assist percentage. I know his role is not to pass, But historically, wings that have an assist percentage below 10%, like, are never star players. And I think it says a lot about, aside from the fact that, the tunnel vision, and can he get rid of the tunnel vision? And maybe if he had better players, maybe he'd pass more. But watch it. But like the tape matches up. He doesn't even survey it's like when he gets the ball, he's already deciding, I'm going to score, I'm going to shoot, regardless of what the defense is reading, what he's seeing. And I think that's such a bad quality. But also he just doesn't have the creativeness off the dribble to make plays for teammates. And to me, that's going to result in like the Michael Porter Jr. role, where he's more of an off-ball guy, as opposed to, I mean, the McGrady comparison was such a popular one. McGrady was like a point guard. It was like a point wing out there. That was what separated him, I think, aside from obviously the shot making too. But a guy would give you 5 assists per game. I don't think Bailey had 5 assists in any game he had all season. And for a while, it was like he never had more than 1 for like the first 20 games, something like that. It's not part of his game. From a value standpoint, it's not there. So, I got problems with that. I'm not saying he's going to be a bust. I just don't think that he's going to be like if you're a scorer and you don't really add value anywhere else, like you better be a damn good, efficient scorer. He gives you 25 plus a night on 50% shooting. And it's to bet on that is a tough bet. Also knowing his kind of mindset. He also answered some questions like at the combine. They asked him about like that shot selection. He's like, no, I'm going to keep shooting. I'm a bucket. I forget exactly what he said, but something along the lines of like, my playmaking. He could have said my playmaking is underrated, and it would have been better than whatever he said.
Yeah. Does he have that ability? Because the comps now that you might mention, if you're moving away from the McGrady's, does he have the ability to scale down? Then it's not. I'm not even talking about a mindset thing, but when you look at him, like the Michael Porter Jr. role, looking at all the stuff he does at the ball, do you think that he has like that bandwidth to, especially if he winds up with the Sixers, like those shots that he wants to take or those on-ball reps just aren't going to be available to him?
And maybe that's why he's canceling workouts and doesn't want to go there. I mean, I don't know. I don't know exactly what he wants. It's again, this is all Gavoni's reporting. So let's just base it on that. And he's usually good. So he wants to have a easier path to stardom, which suggests he's okay with going to a shitty team and taking 30 shots a game and playing his own game. And so if you look at the board and you go past Philly, you get to the Washingtons and the Utahs and Brooklyn. And it's like, man, they're going to give him the ball right away and he gets to play his own game. So, I don't know if he's going to be able to, how much he'll evolve and how comfortable he'll be. Because going back to high school, go watch his high school tape. It's wild. He took some of the craziest shots you've ever seen. Like, pulling up from remember LaMelo Ball type high school stuff. And he was so much more of a skilled player than anybody else on the team that it was like, it just felt like middle school basketball when you have one really good kid and everyone else sucks. Right. And it was just like, let that one kid just do whatever he wants. That's like what it looked like. And so for him to be in a new environment, again, he went to Rutgers. Like he could have gone to a much better school and had less reps. There's a pattern here. And so, I'm not saying he doesn't have the skill set to do it, but does he want to do it? Is he willing to change his role and change his game a little bit? I don't know.
Let's go to VJ Edgecombe, Dan, unless you want anything else. On
No,
the
I'm in
Bailey
love
front.
with VJ Edgecombe, so please go
Well,
ahead.
so yeah, this will telegraph it, but this is a question from Dan. Why is Edgecombe not just he's the third best guy in this class? Like, why is he not regarded that way? Is it size? Here we are back to self-creation stuff, and then is he someone that like defensively, obviously the athleticism is there. Is he someone that you would imagine being just potentially, again, we're always talking potential, is it just a two-way guy that is going to bring it as a disruptor defensively and be someone that can go on the other end and get buckets that way?
He's number 3 on my board. I mean, there's also a sense
Always
of,
knew I liked you. Wow.
and again, maybe it's more of I value, like I know what I'm getting. Once you start to move down the board, even at 3, you never want to, you always want to make sure you're getting something. And I think that with VJ, like what he does well will translate. Now the question is he going to improve on the weaknesses that will raise his ceiling? And yeah, like you said, I think if there's questions about him, he's 2 guard size and he's not the most creative player with the ball in his hands. Also, I'd say if there's a big knock that worries me, the 2 things that worry me is he's not a good pull-up shooter. and he actually was a very poor finisher on layups, despite the fact that he's crazy athletic. I'm not going to nitpick. And if you watch the tape, like he obviously can pull off crazy finishes, and he's as explosive as it gets in this draft. But to me, you're getting a guy who is a very good spot up shooter, and I'm buying again another guy who just keeps getting better. I love that. So I would bet on him continue to get better as a shot maker. But right now, he made more threes than Ace Bailey this year, by the way. And everyone, Ace Bailey was known to be like the super specialist shot maker, and VJ hit more threes or averaged at least the same amount per game, 1.6. So I'm confident in the shot making will be fine. And then you throw in just that burst off the dribble, the explosiveness, and then the defense, and makes good decisions. He had a very good assist to turnover ratio. He averaged over 3 assists per game, and that was without these creative handles. Like he just, he doesn't make many unforced errors. And usually guys with like that are so explosive will tap into it too much, right? They'll drive into traffic and they'll lose the ball, and they'll want to dunk on somebody every 5 minutes. But he didn't. He has a very good feel, and he's not crazy selfish. And everybody says great things about him. And I'm a Long Island guy, so I've talked to a lot of people at Lehigh where he went to high school, and everybody like raves about his character. Of course, by the way, everybody in the draft has high character, if you didn't know. But but VJ, from what I've seen, also but really does. And like again, you're getting a definitely a guard, a guy who's going to guard 2 to 3 positions effectively. And somebody's going to put pressure on the rim, make good decisions, make open shots. Like you just can't go wrong with a player like that.
Yeah. I feel like everybody freaks out. Maybe I'm projecting. Anytime there's a guy who in the class that's like, he's a 2 and that's kind of it. And then you start talking about his pluses and minuses, and it sounds like Ben McLemore. And you're like, oh, okay, right. that's not the road we want to go down. Because that was the first name that came to mind as I was just kind of looking at the strengths. I think maybe McLemore was regarded as a better shooter, but yeah. I want to talk about Jeremiah Fears. Sorry, Dan, to co-opt this one, but like he is so interesting to me just because one of the, circling back to like, the player types that are in vogue and are not, small guards, it's not their moment right now, other than like Darius Garland. And it's just like, I think the way the game's played now, it's really hard for a smaller guard, even if you're super quick, to see all the passing angles that you need to be able to see to play the way the game's played now. So he's polarizing for that reason and some others. Can you give us the snapshot of Fears? And then if it's not too like kind of tricky to do this, who is someone that he reminds you of that overcame the small guard stuff and succeeded? And who's someone where you watch Fears and you're like, oh, he kind of seems like this small guard that didn't, like, I don't know, TJ Ford. That's a bad case because he had injuries, but like, I'm doing some deep pulls right now. Ben McLemore and TJ Ford. But who's someone Fears could be on the upside, and who's someone that you might be concerned about him resembling on the downside?
I mean, I think the one that I've heard, and I don't agree with it, but like, John Morant was the same type of like explosive ball handler who wasn't a great shooter. Morant was a better passer. Actually, Murray State, like passing was such a big part of his game. We don't really talk about that as much in the NBA, but I think that I've come to like DeJounte Murray as his comp, as kind of like the type of guy I expect, who bring you offense. It might not be efficient. He might not play great defense. Somebody who's going to produce, but whether he's providing plus value, you're kind of unsure. I hate to do it because he's really another high character guy. He's also so young, and he was working out in the city for his pre-draft, so I got to see him a lot in private settings and meet him. And he's gonna, like, these private workouts, he's gonna blow people away because he's so sharp and explosive. And of course, everybody is Kyle Korver in an empty gym, and he's working out with Mike Miller, who's got him doing all these like awesome shooting drills. And like, you'll be like, oh, this guy's going to be a great, historically, the guys with high turnover rates and bad 3-point shooting who really don't offer off-ball value, it's such an uphill battle. And so Scoot Henderson's a guy I've talked a lot about in terms of comparing like what his first couple of years are going to look like. And I guess, again, I haven't watched Scoot really in the NBA. I know he had a better second year, but still, I think based on where everyone thought Scoot went, everybody loved Scoot because he was like strong, and explosive ball handler. And I think aesthetically, it kind of fools people because he's such a fun, the highlights are so like captivating. but it doesn't necessarily translate to efficient basketball when he's the guy that needs to make all the reads and decisions, and he's not a great shooter, and he turns the ball over a lot. So I've moved. I hate to do it, but I moved Fairs down into the teens for myself on my board, and I like him enough where, again, I think he's going to be a guy who puts up numbers. And if you have him in the right role where he's not like making all the decisions for your team, he could be of use. But this idea that, and I know there are scouts out there who think he is a top 5 pick in this draft. I know his camp thinks he's a top 5 pick in this draft for sure. They're very confident that he's going early. I would let somebody else take him. I like him. Like maybe if he's like coming off the bench, or you already have an established playmaker. But yeah, he's got the shot, the range is a problem, and he makes some crazy decisions. But again, it's tough because he's so young. He's 18, and so he's the type of guy, like if you take him, you got to accept the fact that he's going to have a rough couple of first years, right? Like if you're a point guard and you're not a combo, because you're not going to take him and put him at the 2. Like he's not going to guard anybody, and he's not a spot up shooter. Like you take him because his one value is putting pressure on the defense, creating advantages. But with that are going to come sloppy plays, missed pull-ups. But yeah, I'm a little bit lower on him than where I think he's going to go in the draft.
As you're describing, he sounds like Rob Dillingham to me, or from the little we saw of this year in Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really see him at all in Minnesota, but going back, like Dillingham was a guy who was small, but like in college, he was very efficient. Mm-hmm. Like I couldn't believe how efficient he was, but especially another guy we've seen so much of. Fierce, we didn't see so much of coming in. Like he was not on draft boards coming into the year. I don't even think people thought of him as a point guard, to be honest. But he, like the way he moves with the ball, just looked differently when he got to Oklahoma. And again, he's one of those guys who's like eye candy, like so easy to watch, so fun to watch. But how is it going to translate in a high usage role? And by the way, he had a lot of usage at Oklahoma, and also a bad team around him. So the mistakes were understandable. But he's going to go to the NBA. Like if he's a starting point guard next year, expect him to shoot below 40% and expect him to near the league lead in turnovers.
Another guy I find polarizing, and probably because I don't think I would touch him with a 10-foot pole in this draft, is Tre Johnson. I recognize the self-creation, 6'6", the shot-making ability. I've seen comps to Tyler Hero and Anthony Simons, and from what admittedly little I've seen of him, I think his team would be lucky if he turned into that level of passer. And so I'm just like, where are you sort of at on him? And he's been mocked a lot in the top 5. If he's someone who could maybe slip a little bit just because of those concerns that are attached to his archetype.
I had a team tell me yesterday he's not going to make it outside the top 6.
Wow.
And they were picking shortly after that, and they like him. Tre Johnson is like, to me, actually what's funny is that the guy who said to me, which I kind of disagree with, he's like, he's a boomer bust guy. And to me, I don't necessarily see that. I see a guy who's like, I know is going to give me bucket. He's going to put the ball in the basket. I think the question is he Cam Thomas, or is he, like a star level type of 2 guard? But I think he's going to score in the NBA no matter what. Again, another guy who historically, a guy with like a very low free throw rate, a very better assist rate than Ace Bailey. But he struggled. He didn't get to the rim much. And when he did, he wasn't a great finisher. So again, he's going to rely a lot on shot making. Right now, I think he's 11 on my board. Again, I value, like, I know what I'm getting. Like, I know I'm getting shot making. I'm also not drafting. Like, when I do big boards, by the way, I really should, I want to say this every time. Like, I'm not drafting for, I should really do 30 big boards, because it depends on who I'm drafting for. Mm-hmm. And so, and who's around him, because it does affect his first couple of years in the league and his role and like how efficient he's going to be. So if he goes to the right team where he doesn't have to be the number 1 option or number 2 option like he was at Texas, then I think he could add really nice, like, complementary shot making value. But yeah, I do have concerns about the fact that he does not get to the rim much. He takes some really tough shots. Now I'm not buying that. I'm not buying the playmaking either. Like, it's just not part of his DNA. And I know he can make some really nice passes, but that's not enough to the point where it's like you can even call him a combo guard or put him in ball screen situations to make reads and set the table. Like he's he's going to make money. He's going to earn his minutes because he can make jump shots. And I question the ceiling of a guy like that, but I think on the right team, he could be pretty valuable.
Speaking of making jump shots, Kon Knueppel, he's gonna shoot it. Do you or the people that you're talking to? What's the confidence level in all the other stuff that he was able to do at the collegiate level, like the floor mapping, the way he can use his physicality, even though he doesn't really get off the floor very much? Like how much of an issue, how much of a concern is the athleticism issue, and just like, is he going to be a specialist, or is he someone that might have the ball in his hands and do some other stuff at the next level?
He really reminds me of Cam Johnson. I think that's such a fair comp in terms of like ceiling and what he'll be doing. He's going to, no, he's not a great athlete. He's not the sharpest creator with the ball, but he's such a skilled and like technical shot maker. He's very smart. He's useful in pick and roll situations, not necessarily to score, but to make passing reads. And he's good at like changing speeds and just the cliche classic feel for the game. He just gets it. Like he knows like what to do, like how fast to go, what steps to take. I don't know how high his upside is. I talked to somebody yesterday who said they like him. I think everybody likes him. Does anybody love him? I know Gavoni has him 4, and that's also creating this new storyline that he is like, after the big names, the most coveted guy. I haven't talked to anybody that has him that high. But again, he's such a safe bet. Like he's a safe bet who provides something that every team values, and what he brings translates. So that whole package right there, I think makes him, at least to me, I pick in the 5 to 10 range. But I think the question with Knueppel is like, how high is his ceiling? How good can he really be without much creation? He didn't shoot very well off the dribble this year. I think like maybe 32% on pull-ups, and it was on pretty low volume. But going back to high school, that wasn't a problem for him. I'm not going to hold that against him. But still, Cam Johnson to me just seems like a good medium for where his ceiling is. How he can score. He'll give you 3.5 assists per game. He's probably not, ideally a top 2 option.
Was, are you ready to enter the rapid fire portion of the podcast?
Ooh, let's do it.
I was wondering if you could give your overview quickly on some of these players, and one of them, no pressure, I'm very obsessed with, Collin Murray-Boyles.
Ooh, I'm in. I'm a fan. And by the way, there's people around the NBA who are not fans, who I think they're just.
Is that what it is?
I mean, I think it's just like if you write down, like, again, on paper, he doesn't make any sense. he's a small, big man who doesn't shoot. like on paper, it doesn't work. But when I watch him play, he's so good at creating these angles for himself. He's strong. He's quick. He's got instincts that you can't teach in terms of like how to, again, create these like finishing angles with both hands. He's very comfortable in the mid-range. I think because he was so much stronger than everybody else, and he could kind of play bully ball in college, he didn't take a lot of jump shots in the mid-range. But watching him at the combine, I think he was like maybe the number 2 guy in mid-range shooting. And going back and watching the film of all of his jump shots, I mean, he looked very comfortable within 15 feet. I don't know how often you get an open 15-footer, but like he's got touch. And no, his 3 ball is not very good right now. But I don't know. I bet on him. He's one of those guys, like I said before, of like, traditionally he doesn't make a lot of sense, but he's so good at what he does that I think what he does can translate. And then also he throws in passing as a side bonus and like defensive quickness where he can like step out away from the basket, but also because he's so strong, 245 pounds, he can guard bigs. Another young guy for his class. Like, I don't know, I'm in. I know he's kind of an outlier, but he's somebody I would bet on.
I'm in too, in case anybody cares. The defense. Give me it. He just seems like, I know the Draymond comp gets thrown around a lot.
Just going to say.
But just from what I've seen of him, like that's one where I've looked at it and said, all right, like I could see it happening. Maybe not as obviously generational as Draymond, but like just the feel and the reads and the ability to kind of coalesce with everyone else and tie everything together. It feels like he has that.
Yeah.
Well,
no, I was going to say he just didn't have, like, his role was so different at South Carolina, where it's like, I would love to see him next year. I can't compare him to Draymond right now, but if I saw him go to a team where he had Draymond's role and he wasn't like the guy who had to score 20 points a game, then I could see more of like, okay, how does he adapt as a passer, a guy who like uses his IQ, a lot.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, if you're looking for a comp that's favorable to a guy with his frame and skill set, it's like you don't have a lot of options. You have to say Draymond and just like pretend as if like some of the superpowers he has aren't part of it. What about Derik Queen?
Queen is man. I think like 2 days ago I was in. Yesterday I was out. I might be back in today. Like it's like I feel like such an like lack of professionalism when I'm scouting Queen because I'm so torn on what I see. And again, he's a Montfort Academy. It's not like he just came out and we've watched Derik Queen since he was 16 years old, and watching him in high school, he's like you'd never think of like a big time pro because he's like this heavy, slow-footed, back to the basket guy who doesn't shoot. So there's like nobody even talked about him as a pro really. And then he comes and all of a sudden we're seeing he's so skilled in his footwork. And what really got me, I love bigs that can face you up and handle. And I didn't know he really had this part of his game. But if you go back and look at all the highlights of him this year where he can really handle the ball and make a move and use Euro steps and footwork to get to those spots and then finish with body control. Like the Şengün comparison is obviously a best case one, but their scouting reports are very similar. Şengün's bigger. That's obviously an important piece here, but a weaker version of Şengün, and he's not going to be a plus defender. In fact, he's got to go to a team that can kind of mask those limitations, and hopefully you get like a 4-man who can block shots and guys who are tough around the perimeter. But offensively, I mean, I know they say defense wins championships, but like offense is like a really good offensive player who doesn't defend is still pretty valuable.
Don't tell Nico Harrison that, Was. This player, I feel like I shouldn't be obsessed with. I know you, in one of your comparison pieces, you had him listed to Josh Giddey, which is why that should be a red flag for me of all people. But Egor Demin, that's another guy I'm obsessed with. Like I see more of just like the way that Cooper Flagg plays the game on offense, or even a Luka Doncic, than I do of like a Josh Giddey type. But where are you sort of at on him?
Yeah, I have trouble with guys who they're ball like you. If you take it's like I'm not comparing to Ben Simmons, but I am comparing to Ben Simmons. And like if you take him, you got to give him the ball, right? He's got to be the guy who's handling it for you. You don't take Egor Demin and like put him on the wing and have him stand around and like make spot up jump shots or like cut. What he's good at is being a 6'9" guy who can create and set the table. I love that. Again, I always say passing translates. He's a very good passer, and at 6'9", there's no question in my mind he's going to be a guy who can get you 7 assists, 8 assists a game. But there's such a difference in terms of the shot making. Like when he's contested, the percentages are so crazy different. Like he does not shoot well when he's under duress, and he's not an off-ball guy, and his turnovers are so frustrating. They're so lazy and so casual. It kills me. And that's always kind of been part of his thing, like where some people have been hesitant to jump on the bandwagon, is that he doesn't seem like he's always like mentally locked in because he's so naturally talented as a 6'9" point guard. But again, for the right team, I love a guy who can, like, I think that part of his game carries over. Whether he adapts and changes and cuts down on the unforced errors and starts making jump shots, of course, that raises his ceiling a lot more. But to me, I'd let somebody else take him unless he was the perfect fit for me, where I just needed the guy who can create for everyone else and just focus on that. I'm good with him for that role.
Duke player number 3. Well, who does Maluach remind you of? And I've seen a crazy range of mocks for him. So I'm curious where you're at.
Again, I don't know. Like we know what we're going to get with him. There's so many guys in that archetype of just seven footers who finish and defend. And how many guys in the league are like that? Like, Yves Missi was right. Yves Missi went 21 last year, right? And it kind of carried over right away. Like, can he continue? Maluach should be able to do what Yves Missi did. how high is his ceiling? Like if he starts hitting threes, because he has shown it before he got to Duke at Global Academy. Like he did show flashes of that, and of course in the workout setting, he's showing that. But again, I watched him in games this year, and he didn't do any of that. And when he did have opportunities, like put the ball on the floor, like he looked a little shaky. Like I can't picture him doing that. I could only picture the catch and finish stuff. The being a lob target. Again, also like it didn't. I get a little, maybe it's to my fault. I get a little crazy with numbers, and I know he's going back and seeing like he didn't block a lot of shots. Like how does a guy like that with a 7'6" wingspan not block a lot of shots? But yeah, he moves well. Like the eye test says yes, the numbers don't. But history also says that his game should translate to that basic catch and finish and protect the rim roll.
How would you compare him as a prospect to like Derek Lively, just to use another Duke / recent center prospect?
Similar. I think I use him as my comp. And Lively's a guy who also in high school was shooting threes, not all the time, but like, and if you ever watch Lively warm up in high school and at Duke practices and stuff, he shoots threes and he looks like he can make them. And that's the same with Maluach. Now, does it translate to the NBA, or coaches are going to be like, get out there and start launching away? Like probably not, at least not in the first couple of years. But I think that's the comp I use. And it's like, there's, I don't even know in the NBA how to separate, like how to really distinguish like the tiers of that archetype of like, who's in the A1 tier of the finisher shot blocker archetype, but I don't know, can he be a starting center doing that? Yeah, he can. But there's also so many of those guys. Like every year another one comes around. You could probably pay for him, pay pretty cheap for them in the free agent market. So I do think a team is going to reach on him early. Also, he like another high character guy. Like everybody raves about his intangibles. I think he's like first of all, he's got a great story coming from South Sudan, and his journey to be a Duke center is wild. But I think he's like a fun-loving, charismatic kid. So locker rooms are going to love him, and I think he's kind of got that contagious, like just a lovable type of kid.
This player wasn't on my initial list, but we actually had a listener urge me to go watch him, so I did. Carter Bryant. I came away thinking that a highest end outcome would be like, what if Herb Jones and Trey Murphy merged into the same human being?
Yeah, listen, Carter Bryant has that classic. He's just like your classic 3-and-D guy. Yeah, I do. Again, I talked to somebody the other day who was like, he's going lottery. He's just, everyone is like so drawn to that big wing shooter who could defend multiple positions, and that's what he does. He averaged 6 points a game this year. All he did was kind of stand around and, get out, try and use his athleticism around the rim and make spot up jumpers and sell himself defensively, which he did pretty well. So that again is a valued archetype. And if that's his floor, I guess another selling point is, well, like if this is what we can get as a freshman, like what does he do in the next 5 years in terms of development? Does he add more off the dribble? I think people get too excited about the 3-and-D thing, and somebody's going to reach on him. But I can't. Having seen him in high school, like I just can't picture him being like a go-to guy in the offense. He kind of like what's his name, Caleb Houston on Orlando. Like that's like the type of guy he reminds me.
A little bit less of a player than I used to.
Dan is describing peak Paul George, and you go with Caleb Houston.
But there's no like evidence to suggest that he is like a guy who you can give the ball to and make plays and reads.
Yeah,
that's just not part of his game. Now, if it does become part of his game, then like I guess I missed the behind the scenes flashes. But from gameplay, it's not something he really does.
This is going to become another Cody Williams disaster for me, isn't it? Where I'm just
but Cody Williams, but at least Cody Williams didn't really have any go-to strength. Like Cody Williams, like there was like little flashes in every department. You saw versatility, but you never saw one thing that you can bank on. I think you can with Carter. Like there's definitely safety with Carter. Like his physical tools, his athleticism, and his shot making are real, and that again is a very translatable package. So yeah, I do. Sorry, the Caleb thing was a little rough. I think visually sometimes.
Hey,
I mean, if
I was thinking of a worst case outcome. Well, that was a worst case outcome, of course. But somebody's going to reach on him and I wouldn't. But also another theme of the day: high character kid. You got to listen to him talk. He's very spiritual. He's very well spoken and like intellectual, and I really like listening to him. So I think he's going to be. There's a professionalism about him that's going to come off really well in interviews.
Who's got the lowest character? I'm just kidding.
Look, by the way, if your worst case outcome is getting minutes over Jet Howard, that's probably not the worst.
I guess there is there are lower floors.
Shifting gears a little bit.
I was going to say we have Wasp for a few more minutes. I was going to say, do you want to take us through some of those like quick fire superlatives?
Yeah. So who would you say? Oh, you wanted superlatives? Oh,
go to. I could see you want to ask the other one. Ask the other one.
Yeah. Who do you feel like is the highest variance player in the lottery range? And then if you want to extend that to even in like the first round, it's like you could realistically see this guy going 5 or 19. Like that's a hyperbolic range, but who is that guy to you right now?
You mean in draft stock or in terms of like their ceilings and floors?
Let's say draft stock. Like who is the NBA like? Ooh, I don't know if he needs to be in the green room because this could get ugly.
I think Derik Queen is a guy who I think could go like 5 or 6. But then having talked to skeptics around the league, they're like, how do I take a 6'9" center who doesn't play defense or shoot? Yeah. So Queen would be the answer. But I think if I had to bet, somebody would take him early because everybody loves skill and feel, and he's got that.
Okay.
Do you want to take us through some of the superlatives now, Grant?
Yeah, let's. Yes, now I will. I just had to get that answered. Give me your 3 most skilled, like pick guy you could put the ball in his hands and he's going to run pick and rolls. Who are the 3 guys you'd pick in this draft to kind of head that list?
I mean, Dylan Harper with the ball in his hands and pick and rolls. He's so good at splitting defenses and getting to spots and getting downhill. He's not your natural like pick and roll passer or like a Steve Nash type, but put him like if you give him a ball screen, he's going to create an advantage. And he's so good at getting to his spots and finishing. He's an amazing finisher. So I'm Harper from a passing standpoint, like Nolan Traore from France. He is he's a different type of ball screen guard, but like a set the table ball screen guard. Like he just plays at his own pace, slow down, but he's going to find use his change of speed and stuff to free guys up, and then he'll make that pass that sets everybody up. I guess let's give Yakuchonis a shout out from Illinois, another guy who's really good size. I love, again, for a ball screen guard, like I love guys who can shoot off the dribble. That's such a big thing because you always got defenses backpedaling. If you could just stop and pop, like you're always going to get an uncontested look. And Yakuchonis, I think, is a good shot maker in very different ways, but also a very heady passer and can make those classic point guard reads. And again, I also think Knueppel's not going to get as many of the ball screens as all the guys I just mentioned. He'll get those maybe a couple a game, but he reads them so well. He's so good at like freeing up the big man and putting him in position to get an easy bucket.
And then we're going to run through some skill sets here. Who's the best rim protector in this class? And then who else is in that conversation? Short list.
By numbers, it's well, not by numbers technically, but I guess if you think of numbers and age, Beringer from another guy overseas who is just got an invite to the green room, super young, like has no idea what he's doing out there, but he's 6'11", moves extremely well, and just like even without knowing what he's doing, 8.5% block rate, and he just has like natural shot blocking ability. And moves really, really well away from the basket. I almost like love his switchability more than the shot blocking. Thomas Sorber from Georgetown, 7'6" wingspan. I don't know how useful it's going to be, or relatively speaking, when he's only 6'9" in socks, but he blocked a lot of shots. He created a lot of defensive events, as the kids say. And Ryan Kalkbrenner also has just always been a very good pick and roll defender. I think he's going to carve out an NBA career, maybe even if it's as a backup, but his defensive rim protection is pretty good.
How about movement shooters? Guy like your Jordan Hawkins is, to go back a couple years.
What? That's the name you went to?
I think about Jordan Hawkins a lot. I keep waiting for him to pop.
Yeah. How about, Knueppel? Knueppel's an obvious one. just like, again, he's just picture perfect with the form and stuff and the balance. Kobe Bryant is probably by the numbers the best shooter in the draft from Kentucky. He doesn't do anything else, literally nothing else. But he's such a good shooter, and he's 6'6" on socks. And if there's anyone that has a chance to be like a Duncan Robinson, it's Kobe Bryant. And I mean, listen, we said some negative things about Tre Johnson, but he is another very fundamentally sound shooter off movement.
You want to take him, Dan?
Yeah. So who is the best like on ball defender in your book, and anyone else that would fall into that same category for you?
I mean, VJ's quickness is so crazy. I mean, I would hate to be guarded by him. He makes some mistakes here and there, but like he has the chance to be especially if he's guarding point guards. Like I would put him on a point guard. I mean, he's going to be so hard to shake. Murray-Boyles is very interesting just because of the body type and the feet. Like that combination is pretty rare, like we talked about with the Draymond. And I think Cooper could be very tough too. Cooper he's like one of those like crazy intense guys where it's like if it's the end of the game, he's going to lock in. Like I wouldn't want to be guarded by Cooper Flagg. He is big, quick, physical. It's crazy intense, like one of those guys who's probably like salivating and got like red in his eyes. I wouldn't want to be guarded by him. Let's give a shout out to Hugo Gonzalez because we probably won't talk about him. Hugo Gonzalez from playing with Real Madrid. Also, has always been since he was a younger kid. By the way, he's still a kid, but very good combination of physical tools and defensive intensity.
And are there any specific couple names, however many names you want to throw out there, whether they're going to be end of first round, in the second round, or maybe undrafted, just gems that we should keep an eye on moving forward?
Yeah, I like Kobe Sanders from Nevada, who not many people talked about throughout the year. He was my first tweet of the whole season. It was like a guy who I didn't really know before. It was a Cal Poly transfer, and he played his first game in Nevada. He scored 29 points, and he was like, I was like, who the hell is this kid? And then he became the best player at Portsmouth Invitational. And then he suspiciously didn't play at the NBA. He skipped the elite camp. Usually you go from Portsmouth and you get an invite to elite camp. That's great. And if you're really good at elite camp, you go to the NBA Combine. But he went straight to NBA Combine and then didn't play from an injury. So I don't know. I wonder if he heard something. But he's a 6'9" guy who averaged like 18 a game, 4.5 assists, shot the three pretty well. And is somebody who I think was just like totally overlooked throughout the year. Javon Small, a little tough point guard who's going to go mid-second round, probably good at everything, who's probably just overlooked because of his size. And Amari Williams from Kentucky is a 7-footer who is a very, very good passer and somebody who will initiate fast breaks. Offensively, he's probably not going to ever score more than 10 points a game, but good 7-foot athletic. He'll finish plays. He'll be like, kind of like early Hartenstein. Like that's kind of what I reminded of. Like he was like a guy who can like at the top of the key will like, pass, find cutters, facilitate a little bit, and bring you some defensive toughness. So Amari Williams is a guy I think I'm higher on the most.
Most important question I'll ask for selfish purposes: who is this year's Quinten Post, and how can the Warriors acquire him?
Maxime Reynaud from Stanford. Okay. That's your answer.
In the backyard, perfect.
Yeah, he's 7'1". I don't know if the inside the arc game translates as well, but I feel like he can kind of adapt a little bit and become a stretch five. He averaged 20, 10, and 67 threes this year, and made 67 threes this year. There's only two guys that have ever done that, have averaged 20, 10, and made over 50 threes. So I don't know. I think he was the star of the combine, moved him into the first round conversation, although he didn't get an invite to the green room. But I think between his size, his shot making, and he's a skilled enough player to compensate for the fact that he's not very explosive, suggests he can play that role.
Sounds very familiar.
Our final question then, Was, is you're doing this gauntlet of podcast appearances, TV appearances, the whole nine. What is something about this draft class, whether it's a theme, a player, just anything that you wish people asked you about that you don't get to talk enough about? Is it who the Knicks should take at number 50? Because I'll sit here for 30 minutes and listen.
Yeah, that's true. No, I mean, there's a lot of teams with like multiple first round picks. I'm always fascinated with like what, teams with multiple first round picks, how often they talk about packaging them in all the different like situations, and kind of like just the idea of like what goes on. Not that I really have the best answer because I don't work for a team, but like, what are these teams all talking about behind the scenes? I mean, I think I have just over the years have a decent idea of what goes on, and they got to make some type of like Netflix reality show on this of like what the draft process is like behind the scenes for a team. And I think they do the player comps thing. They do. I know they do things like, okay, like put everybody in a room and it's like, okay, the fourth pick was just traded and somebody moved up to take like Derik Queen at 4. Like, how do we react? We have the fifth pick. What do we do now? Like all these hypothetical situations, like almost like the scouts are like trainees learning like a new craft and like, or lifeguards in like these situations. I always think that's such a cool thing. But I wish it was more accessible for us to see like what goes on behind the scenes. And I always try and get a look from behind the closed door. But yeah, and it's just like, what can we do with, what are the different things we can do? How can we be creative in this draft and not just like wait for whoever the best player available is? Like, how can we move up? What are the offers we can make? Stuff like that always fascinates me.
Yeah. Well, the Kings did that when they picked Nick Stauskas, so I think that's why you're never going to see it again.
Good call.
Didn't the Hornets do that last year with Tijon Salon too? So that might be more evidence that we're not going to see this ever happen.
Things aren't working out when you do that.
Yeah, that was not a good pick.
Was, could you tell our listeners, subscribers, watchers, whatever, where they can find you and all the fantastic work that you do?
Yeah, NBA Draft Wasp, Twitter or X at Bleacher Report, and I'm doing some stuff on. I've got to help out Seth Davis. Seth Davis started a new project. He's trying to get it going. I'm helping him out with some content there. But next week I'll be on NBA TV a lot. Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we'll be live on the Bleacher Report app for both rounds. So that should cover next week.
Awesome. Well, thanks for doing this again. You are officially, unofficially roped in to do this every year. Sorry, you don't have a choice. Everybody, please follow us. I cram for the draft by just checking out your mocks and like seeing how they've changed over the weeks and months, and I find it very, very useful. So thanks for doing this, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Rate, review, subscribe, all that stuff. Shouts Frank Ntilikina. Apologies, Jared Allen.